Well, for further clarity, we have with us Sabine Fischer, the head of Eurasia Division at the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. Thanks so much, Sabine, for joining us on NDTV. Clearly, on the Russian state television, Putin has confirmed that Moscow had used a new intermediate range ballistic missile, which we hear is capable of attacking targets at a speed of 2.5 to 3 kilometers per second. Do you think it's time for a negotiated settlement as things deteriorate?
Well, yes, it signals an escalation, and this is exactly part of the signaling that I've just spoken about. And at the same time, it signals that Russia is not prepared to negotiate and make compromise. It signals strength, it signals resolve, and it signals that its war goals have not changed. And Russia's war goal from the very beginning has been the surrender of Ukraine and also the annihilation, if you like, of Ukraine as an independent and sovereign state. And this would have extremely problematic implications, not only for Ukraine, of course. I mean, here the implications are really existential, but seen from a European perspective, this is a very immediate threat to European security, to the security of the EU, of EU member states on an individual base, but also for the European security order as a whole. And I think it would also have very, very serious implications for the global security order. So making concessions, seen from this perspective, is very, very difficult. And as long as the Russian side does not signal that it is ready to compromise, I think it's basically very difficult to start any kind of negotiations.
Right. Ukraine is using US and UK long-range weaponry to target people inside Russia. But what do you have to say about Biden's decision to allow the use of this long-range missiles by Ukraine? Is it provoking Russia? I mean, Putin had warned that if the West gets involved, things will not look up.
Well, I think the fact that the decision was taken now and not before that, it had a lot to do with American domestic politics, with the election campaign. So I think the Biden administration indeed waited until after the elections because it didn't want to damage, let's put it like this, the election campaign, Kamala Harris's election campaign. From a Ukrainian perspective, this is, of course, very, very regrettable because, I mean, you know, it's unfortunately a characteristic of Western military assistance to Ukraine that it's always accompanied by very cumbersome and complicated discussions, and that decisions are being delayed on a permanent basis. So I think this is very much the case here as well. As regards the escalation, I mean, as I said before, yes, this is in a certain way an escalation. I still don't believe that nuclear escalation is very likely, because it would imply incredible damage for Russia as well. So the implications for Russia itself would be extremely serious. And this also includes Russia's relations with the global south. Countries like China, like India and others have made it very clear that they don't want this kind of nuclear escalation. And I think these are signals that reach the Russian leadership. And this would only be one of the implications that a nuclear escalation would have. And I think what is also important is that, I mean, you know, you asked about concessions in your prior question. If Russia were to win this war, this would also mean that, you know, so the threat with nuclear escalation, I mean, this would send a signal to many, many states globally that the threat with nuclear weapons is actually very efficient if you want to change borders. And this would be very dangerous, as I said before, for the international security.
Indeed. Thanks so much, Sabine, for joining us on the World 24/7. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates.